You know the feeling. It's late at night, you're casually scrolling through social media, and suddenly an old photo pops up. It's them, your first love. Even if it was years ago, even if you are perfectly happy in your life right now, that name, that face, or even just a specific smell can trigger a physical reaction. A flutter in the chest, a pang of nostalgia, or a sudden vivid memory of a moment you shared. Why is that? Why does this one person, out of everyone you've ever dated, seem to have permanent residency in your brain? It can feel frustrating. It might seem like a glitch in your emotional software, or perhaps you feel guilty because you're still holding on to a thread of it while trying to move forward. But according to psychology, this is not a glitch. It is a very normal, very powerful biological and psychological response. Today, we're going to unpack the science behind why your first love feels indelible. We'll look at brain chemistry, the Zeigarnik Effect, and identity formation. And we will finish with some psychological strategies on how to process these feelings and truly let go. Let's get into it. To understand why we can't forget our first love, we have to look at what happens to our brains when we fall in love for the very first time. In a word, fireworks. Psychologists and neuroscientists tell us that falling in love creates intense neurological pathways. When you experience romantic love for the very first time, your brain is flooded with a unique cocktail of neurotransmitters. We're talking about dopamine, the chemical responsible for reward and craving, the same one linked to addiction. We're talking about norepinephrine, which gives you that rush of energy and makes your heart race, and oxytocin, the bonding hormone that creates deep attachment. For your first love, this isn't just a rush, it's a foundational event. Your brain is building a completely new superstructure of emotional experience. It's like learning to ride a bike. You never truly forget how, because it was the first time your brain mastered that specific set of skills and balances. Because it is a first, your brain didn't have a reference point for this intensity. Everything was heightened. You were hyper-aware, and that novelty created a deep, almost permanent etching in your neural network. Now, neurochemistry explains the intensity of the experience, but psychology offers another reason why it lingers, even when the relationship is long over. It's called the Zeigarnik Effect. Named after Soviet psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik in the 1920s, it's a psychological phenomenon stating that people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed tasks. Think about a TV show that ends on a massive cliffhanger between seasons. You can't stop thinking about it, right? You need closure. Often, our first loves don't end because we fell out of love. They end because of external circumstances. Going off to different colleges, parental disapproval, or simply because we were young and didn't have the tools to navigate the challenges. Because of this, the relationship feels unfinished. There was no satisfying conclusion, no real narrative closure. Our brains are wired to seek completion. When we have a loose end, like that lingering question of what would have happened if, our brains keep returning to that memory file, trying to finish the task, trying to make sense of it. Because it lacks a proper ending, the file remains open on your mental desktop. Finally, we have to look at when first love usually happens. Adolescence or young adulthood. This is a critical period for identity formation. You are figuring out who you are, what you value, and how you fit into the world outside of your family unit. When you fall in love during this time, that person becomes woven into the fabric of your developing identity. They were there when you first discovered music, politics, heartbreak, and joy on your own terms. In psychological terms, they often act as a mirror, reflecting back to you who you were becoming. Because your sense of self was so malleable and new when you were with them, separating from them can feel like you're losing a part of who you were just becoming. It's an association between a person and a pivotal, exciting chapter of your own personal history. I know many of you watching this are saying, okay, I understand the psychology, but it still hurts, and I am still trying to let go. And that is perfectly okay. Recognizing the memory doesn't mean you are failing to move on. It means you are human. So how do we handle the Zeigarnik effect and create closure for ourselves? Here are 3 psychological tips. First, reframe the narrative. Because the relationship feels unfinished, your brain idealizes the ending. You remember the good times and wonder, what if? Consciously remind yourself why it ended. Acknowledge that if it had continued, it likely wouldn't have been the perfect movie script you imagine in your head. Give the story a realistic ending yourself. Second, disassociate the triggers. The pang of memory is often tied to a song, a place, or a season. You don't need to avoid these things forever, but actively create new memories in those places or with that music attached to your current life. Dilute the power of the old trigger by creating new associations. Third, accept the scar. Don't try to erase the memory. Trying to suppress a thought often makes it stronger. This is the ironic process theory. Accept that this person was a significant event in your life. View the memory not as an open wound, but as a scar. It's part of your history. It reminds you where you've been, but it no longer actively hurts to touch. So, if you find yourself thinking about your first love today, don't panic. Don't feel guilty for struggling to let go completely. Healing isn't a straight line. Your brain is simply acknowledging a seismic event in your personal history. It's a testament to your capacity to feel, to attach, and to grow. Your first love wasn't just a person. It was a chemical cocktail. It was an unfinished story. And it was a cornerstone of who you are today. Acknowledge the memory. Feel the nostalgia. Practice reframing the narrative, and then gently turn your attention back to the present. Thanks for listening. Be kind to yourselves in the process of letting go.